What's up, my beautiful family? It's High Energy Tuesday. Let's go. As a child, I was in a lot of fights. I got into a lot of fights, and what's funny about those fights, they never seemed to last very long at all. Whether it was a school fight or it was a neighborhood fight, there was always someone there to readily break up that fight. Or someone got knocked out and moved on. But really, those fights never lasted. And so as I continued to get older, I realized that the challenges and the fights that I was fighting as an adult, whether that was mentally, emotionally, or physically, whether I was in combat, or competitive fighting, it was just a completely different atmosphere and landscape, because those fights weren't limited by someone readily available to interrupt or disrupt the fight or the engagement. In combat, you're fighting towards a certain objective. And then when you're in competitive fighting, you're fighting for points, or you're fighting to knock someone out or to get a TKO. And so usually time is a factor in that. And as I engaged in these fights as an adult, I realized that I would hit extreme lows of exhaustion and just being extremely tired as I was moving forward. And I would tell you that my childhood fights didn't prepare me very much for what I experienced as an adult, but I've learned things from it that I just want to share with you all in order to help you through your fights, because regardless of where we are in life, we've got a fight that's either in front of us, behind us, or we're in the middle of it. Somewhere in that sphere, there's a fight going on. And so, what did you learn from the last fight? What are you looking forward to while you're in the current fight? And what are you focused on? And then how do you prepare for the future fight? Those are three major keys right there. But what makes up for that exhaustion, that tiredness when you're in the middle of it? Because we've all gotten to a point before, I know I have, where you've been in the middle of a fight and it's just like, man, I'm tired. And you just don't know how to move forward. You don't know how to continue making progress. Well, I've learned a couple of things over time. One is some of that is in good fight hygiene from discipline and training over time. Some of us don't prepare for a worst case scenario, or don't believe that a worst case scenario is possible. But I'm telling you that there is a worst case scenario. And if you're able to prepare for the worst case scenario, then when it smacks you in the face, it's not going to knock you down, but now you have a standing chance to get on the other side of that, to have a positive or a great outcome. And so how are you preparing for the worst case scenario? And that's physically, that's emotionally, that's spiritually, that's mentally. How are you prepared for those possible worst case scenario fights that are going to come up in our life? And training, what I've learned a lot of times, even when I've been completely exhausted and not able to think, clearly, training has helped me get to a place where I could rely on what I've learned over time to continue making progress, even when I can't think as clearly as I need to, even when I'm not as sharp as I want to be in that fight. And then something else you can carry with you is your anchors. A lot of times, we have people, or we have things, or we have ideas that are important to us. And a lot of times when you're in a fight and you're experiencing that tiredness, you're experiencing that almost hopelessness because you feel defeated in some instance, link on to your anchors. Because your anchors will help keep you focused. Your anchors will help you remember why you're willing to get through the tiredness, why you're willing to exhaust everything on that battlefield. And that fight comes in a number of ways. I can remember a time where I was in combat and I had a feeling that something was off. I didn't know exactly what was off, but just it's important to pay attention to some of those gut instincts or gut reactions to your environment. And don't be afraid to be curious and investigate it, because that moment where I just knew something was off potentially saved the lives of others and myself years ago. So just because you can't put a name on it, just because you can't readily identify what's different or what's off, It doesn't mean, hey, just ignore it and quickly walk by it. Like, take a moment. Be curious about what's going on in the environment. Pay attention a little bit differently. Start actively listening to what's happening, what's going on around you. Ask questions. Be curious, and don't be afraid to be curious. And don't let anybody intimidate you from being curious, because you don't know what that gut reaction or gut instinct could lead to, because it could lead to saving someone's life or your own life. So no matter what the fight is in life, no matter what that is, like, I could tell you that if you think that you're walking through life and you're not in a fight, that means that you're losing the fight, because it's always happening. It just shows up in different capacities, in different ways along this journey. And so it's imperative that we get ready and that we continue to prepare in our daily routines, that we continue to prepare in our training, in our discipline, that we practice good fighting hygiene along the way. And so make sure that you're preparing yourself every single day, because if you could prepare for that worst case scenario, well, I can tell you that you've got a better chance at coming out on the other side with a positive outcome. And so those are some things that I've learned about fights over time, whether it's in competitive fighting or combat. I love y'all. It's High Energy Tuesday. Let's continue to get after it. I'm out.